Good evening and welcome to Connecticut Politics Live with Joe and Michelle. We've got that latest headlines affecting Connecticut, and coming up at 5:30, we'll be joined by Republican member-elect of the Connecticut House of Representatives, Joe Hoxa. Dr. Amy Chai is sitting in for Michelle. Dr. Chai, always great to have you aboard.
Hi, it's great to be here as usual.
All right, now our top stories, which, by the way, you can read all about these online at ctpolitics.tv. Connecticut is one of 4 states that has not yet implemented early voting. The constitutional amendment planning to change that now is facing a legal challenge. On November 8th, 60.2% of the state approved a constitutional amendment that would allow the early voting. And when the Connecticut General Assembly resumes its session in January, legislators will begin working on the implementation of that early voting. However, there is now a legal challenge. The Britain resident Naomi Soto filed a lawsuit against the state of Connecticut and the General Assembly. She's claiming that the state legislators did not abide by the constitutional amendment procedures. According to state law, the constitutional amendment must be passed either by 2/3 of the vote or with a simple majority in 2 successive Connecticut General Assembly terms, and then it can be approved in a referendum. In 2019, an early voting resolution was passed by the legislature by a simple majority, and then again in 2021. State Rep Stephanie Thomas, Vice Chair of the Connecticut Administration and Elections Committee and Secretary of State-elect, said that early voting received good bipartisan support. Yet in the lawsuit against the early voting, Soto claims that the 2 proposals passed in 2019 and 2021 are substantially different and thus cannot count as one continuous effort. The lawsuit's going to be heard at the Connecticut Superior Court in Hartford. While the lawsuit is being sorted out, the early voting amendment remains in effect.
Interesting. Yeah, I of course I didn't read both of those, but I think pretty clearly people did want the early voting. But I guess what I'm wondering about is, how much early voting are they going to try to pass? Because early voting could be great or it could be problematic depending on how it's handled.
Yeah, I've been saying from the get-go, being a small state like we are, I think a scenario where voting is Thursday to Tuesday gives you the whole weekend, then the following Monday. Dr. Amy, I think if you, in that 5-day span, don't make the time to come out and vote, you probably don't really care.
Yeah.
You
Yeah,
know
I
what I
think,
mean?
if I could get my 91-year-old father out to vote and I, had to shove him up 5 concrete steps because they didn't have any handicap access, if I can get him to go out and vote, then really anyone can get out and vote. It's inconvenient, but then so is getting up in the morning.
That is true. Yeah, I mean, I think it's Pennsylvania has 50 days of early voting.
Oh, that's insane. A lot can happen in 50 days.
Well, sure, your senatorial candidate could have a stroke and you've already cast your ballot and you're like,
Yeah.
"Oh, can I get that back? Maybe?"
Yeah, there's no return. I mean, that's the ballot of no return, isn't it?
Yeah, it definitely is. So, I'm all for early voting. We're big ballot access fans here.
Yeah.
Uh, but it's got to be something reasonable, and I think
Yeah.
when you get too far out, you're not really being fair to the candidates either.
Exactly. And, that home stretch, getting out the vote, getting out your message to everyone. And if people have already voted last month, that tends to be really a partisan thing because they're like, yeah, I'm voting all Democrat. Here's my ballot. And nobody else really has a chance to. Of course, those people aren't going to change their minds anyway.
Probably not.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Partisans will be partisans.
that is true. That is what
Yeah.
they say.
Well, in other news, bad news, and I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but Connecticut residents face increases of as much as 50%, ouch, in their monthly electric bills as Eversource and United Illuminating filed new supply rates with the state's Public Utilities Regulatory Authority, citing surging ongoing global demand for natural gas. And I guess, as you know, half of our electric is produced with nuclear and half with natural gas. So, on average, an Eversource residential electric customer who uses 700 kilowatt hours of power each month could see an increase of approximately 48% or
Wow.
84.85 over their current monthly bill. That's significant. That's significant. Um, UI companies customers could see an increase of approximately 43% or $79.24 over their current monthly bill. So unless the Public Utilities Regulatory Authority can find a problem with the plan, Eversource's proposed standard service rate for its residential customers would change from 12.1 cents per kilowatt hour to 24.2 cents per kilowatt hour, compared to 11.5 cents per kilowatt hour just last year.
Wow. That's a
Yeah.
jump.
So, and then UI said that its rate will rise from 10.62 to 21.94 cents per kilowatt hour. So, what do you think of that?
I think that is absolutely terrible. They were saying about 2 months ago to expect a 20 to 40% increase.
Yeah.
And this is a little bit higher than even what they thought. You know what gets me though is knowing that they were heading into winter and knowing that obviously, we've had supply chain issues and obviously the war in Ukraine going on. So energy's a real problem. I feel like just like when a hurricane comes and hits here or a tropical storm, it's like I feel like they're not prepared until it's pretty
I know, right?
imminent.
Yeah.
It's like you guys didn't know that we were gonna like you didn't see all this coming. Nobody was planning for this at all. Honestly, like that
Yeah.
eh,
Yeah,
makes people
it's
sus.
very different here in Connecticut from most other states. Like, I lived in Maryland for a long time where, BG&E, which was Baltimore Gas and Electric, handled the electric and the gas. There was literally never any problem, never outages, and there was only one. It was kinda controlled publicly, but
Mhm.
because of the deregulation here in Connecticut, um, it's really a free for all. It's the
Yeah,
bottom line.
and who gets burned by that as usual, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Customers do. I do. You do.
Yeah. This is very unfortunate and although not unexpected.
Yeah.
Some good news, Connecticut did add 1,100 private sector jobs while losing 600 government jobs in October. That's according to monthly statistics released by the Labor Department, which reported a modest net uptick that continues a 10-month streak of job growth in the state.
Well, that
The
is good
report,
news.
yeah, it is, right? There we
Mhm.
go. The
Yeah.
report contained tepid good news on the state's unemployment situation. The net 500 job increase accompanied a slight downward revision to September's job growth numbers, correcting that month's initial report of 4,400 ad jobs to 4,300. Thursday's update also observed a minor increase in Connecticut's unemployment rate, which grew from 4% in September to 4.3% in October. In a press release, Labor Commissioner Dante Bartolomo said the report showed indicators of a strong underlying economy. It's funny when you start talking about strong indicators of the economy, right? There's two different, like there's the look at your pocketbook version of that, and then there's looking at the strong indicators of the job market and stuff, and those are
Yeah.
vastly different things for most people.
Yeah. It depends on what side of each supply and demand cycle that you're actually on.
Yes.
But I think it's actually good that we are seeing, believe it or not, an increase in the unemployment rate, because that means there's more people out there that are actually looking for jobs. So hopefully some small businesses will start to fill those positions that have really gone unfilled really since the pandemic. It's been hard to find employees.
According to the report, this is pretty cool too. Connecticut's recovered 89.4% of the 289,400 jobs that were lost during the early weeks of the COVID-19 pandemic. In October, the state experienced the most growth, 1,500 jobs in its leisure and hospitality sector, the sector that was most devastated by the
Mm,
pandemic.
mhm.
It then lost the most jobs, 1,100, in its professional and business services sector. So that's a little more good news. We like to see that.
It's good news that people are out having fun again too. Because what's life if you can't go out and have fun sometimes?
I'll tell you, I've been a little apprehensive in going to a lot of stuff, but I did this fair season enjoy all of Connecticut's wonderful fairs all over the state and no COVID or anything. So it was a success. It's nice to be back out amongst people.
Oh, yeah. I agree completely. You can't stay inside forever.
Funny that you say that because, right? I mean, for the better part of 2 years, other than the grocery store, you can go anywhere under any circumstances ever. And when I first started going out again, I was a little nervous about it. And the more you go out, the more you're like, chances are pretty good you're going to be all right. You know,
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
to get
Well,
too near people.
yeah, it's kinda like I was really enjoying the pandemic kind of because, I had to work, of course, because 'cause I'm a physician, and, but there was no traffic, and I'm like, "Yay, wee! I can drive as fast as I want to go to work now."
Oh my goodness, yeah. Wow, traffic and no car accidents because my goodness, since we opened the state up again, seems like people are struggling to drive and not
Oh,
hit
yeah,
each
right?
other. There's a lot of
Well,
that.
this is Connecticut. Connecticut, has too many New York drivers in it.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, next up, we find that the schools of Canton High School Warriors and the Killingly High School Red Men and Red Gals and the Windsor High School Warriors. Killingly was supposed to receive more than $94,000 in funding, but they won't be eligible anymore due to the review's findings. Canton and Windsor don't currently receive funding, but they're now ineligible according to the Office of Policy and Management. So, the reason that they were denied this funding is because they do have these names, the Warriors, the Redmen, and well, two of them are Warriors and one of
Yeah.
them is Redmen. That they were intending to keep their name, symbol, or images that depict, refer to, or are associated with Native American tribes, individuals, customs, or traditions without the permission of a recognized tribe.
This is a really controversial topic. I don't like the Cleveland Indians had a logo of a red-faced Indian. It was a very stereotypical design. He was called Chief Wahoo. And I remember even as a kid being like, this doesn't feel right.
Yeah,
Something
that's
ab
that's a little disturbing.
right? But now,
Yeah.
I mean, the word warrior,
Warrior could
they've
be
been using right.
anything.
I mean,
Yeah.
it's a term that isn't necessarily associated with Native Americans. I
They might have
understand.
imagery of an Indian
Sure,
on
and if
their
you
yeah.
do, you could probably just change the imagery to something more generic as far as what a warrior is.
Right,
I think
that would be easy to do, I
the
think.
Red Men one, though, that's pretty,
Yeah, that's like the Washington Redskins. They had
yes.
the same issue.
Yep, St. John's, University also used to be the Red Men, and
Hmm,
about 2 decades ago, they changed their name to the Red Storm.
hmm.
Wi so, the Florida State Seminoles, they literally have a Native American who rides a horse through the end zone when they score a touchdown. It's in Seminole County, and a big part of the program is this celebrating of Native Americans. I think when the logo or the name is not meant in a stereotypical or derogatory fashion, I don't see the issue.
Right, I agree, and, like, for me, I would be totally cool with someone, calling their school the Vikings or the Valkyries or something like that. As long as the logo was hot or something, you know?
Yeah, right. Something cool.
Yeah, a great logo, yeah,
Mhm.
but if it had, like, a weird, ugly, you know, caricature type of a logo that was not really respectful, I can definitely see where that would be a problem.
Yeah. I think that should be what people are focused on. And it seems like, again, anything that even could remotely, and I think that's where you're starting to push people too much. It's like, oh, come on, Warriors, really? Um, but yeah, I'd be curious to see what their logos are, and I bet you this could all be
Yeah,
avoided and they could get funded if they just
yeah,
tweak
they
that bad boy a little
yeah,
bit,
I bet they could do that real
Yeah,
easily.
very easily. You're watching Connecticut Politics Live with Joe Aguirre and Dr. Amy Chai. We'll take a quick break, come back with some more headlines, and then don't forget, 5:30, Republican member-elect Joe Hoxa is going to be joining us right here on Connecticut Politics Live.
Want to have your show on CT Politics? If you produce a show on CT political issues or commentary and want to play it to the world, contact us now at ctpolitics.tv. We'd love to have you part of the team.
Welcome back. More headlines. Connecticut lawmakers plan to meet for a special session right after Thanksgiving to commit more funding to an energy assistance program, to increase bonuses for some essential workers, and to extend breaks on bus fares and the gas tax. That's all according to House Speaker Matt Ritter. That agenda solidified a meeting between Governor Lamont and legislative leaders and comes after both Eversource and United Illuminating and informed utility regulators that Connecticut residents will see their electric bills jump by more than $80 a month. The bill will continue free bus fares until April and phase out an ongoing suspension of the state's 25-cent excise tax on gasoline by restoring 5 cents every month between December and May. It'll also dedicate an additional $60 million to a program designed to compensate some private sector essential workers for their service during the pandemic. The boost follows a call for closer to $90 million in additional funding made earlier this week by State Controller-elect Sean Scanlon. The legislation on which these lawmakers expect to pass will also commit to funding the state's low-income home energy assistance program at $135 billion, roughly where it was funded last year due to federal supplements. At the moment, Ritter said the program was funded at $102 million. The additional state funding would only kick in if Congress neglects to provide additional federal support.
Hmm.
Tough times right now. I'm telling
Very
you,
much so.
I say this often, but people who are on the lower end of the income scale and elderly people on fixed incomes, it's going to be a really tough winter. And I really hope that these guys can get this together quick and make sure that they're getting support out to people who are really going to need it. And nothing like, again, coming right down to the wire on this stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, and the other thing and I really feel like I should say this, it's really, really important. What a lot of people end up doing is using space heaters and things like that,
Mhm.
when there's problems affording the oil, or generators, things like that, and we have to use extreme caution with using of any kind of space heaters because of carbon monoxide poisoning, which is deadly. If you have any headaches, nausea, feeling confused or tired, and you have some sort of a space heater in the home, absolutely go outdoors, get it checked out. Don't risk your life for heat this winter.
Yeah, that's a big one, and for people, sometimes we just assume this is common sense, but don't ever plug those things inside.
Uh-huh.
Don't ever try to bring a charcoal grill in your house and cook
Right.
inside, even on an enclosed, like a 3-season porch or whatever.
Mhm.
Yeah, you'll definitely, set yourself up. Also, probably a good time if you haven't already done it. I know a lot of people when the clocks go back and forth, they take that time check their smoke alarms and
Yeah.
CO2 detectors.
Hmm.
Again, probably get on that now if you haven't already.
Yeah, absolutely do that. Make sure that your alarms are working and that everything is safe. You know, i- it's going to be a rough winter for everyone, and I just would surely hate to see it compounded by tragedy.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. So, Democrat Adam Frisch conceded the Colorado District 3 race to Republican Lauren Boebert during a news conference on Friday morning, even though a recount is expected. A recount is unlikely to change the outcome of the election, according to analysis of previous races and a fair vote analysis of statewide and national races from all 50 states between 2010 and 2019.
Amy, I am a person who, when I vote, I look line by line. I'm picking the best candidate. I'm mixing it up.
Hmm.
There's
Good.
not a lot of people who I wanted to see lose a race. Lauren Boebert is 100% one of those people who I wanted to see lose because the super divisive people like that who, only seem to live to antagonize the other side and don't seem
Yeah.
to really accomplish anything at their job. I feel like we don't need those kind of people in Congress anymore.
Yeah, I think that's true, but I really think it reflects the mood of people who really would like to throw grenades inside the beltway, metaphorical grenades, if you will,
Mhm.
because a lot of people are really, really sick and tired of feeling as though they're not being represented. And sometimes yelling, screaming, making a ruckus, or, getting under people's skin, it just feels like the only recourse that they have. So I get
I
it.
also I also
Yeah.
feel like when you're living in a district and you select somebody, that person's values are somewhat reflective of the community's values.
Of course.
And
Yeah.
right when
Mhm.
nationally people are like, "You guys need a better congressperson," you're trying to tell people what to do from outside the district. I feel like that's never you're not gonna get the results you're looking for. This was a much closer race than anybody expected, which I think speaks volumes about the people who live in that district. But the people that put her there in the first place,
Mhm.
who were sort of being questioned on a national scale, were like, yeah, don't worry about us. We'll do our thing. But
Right.
I don't know. These super divisive people, I get it. It's too much. It really is.
Well, it would be nice if American people were represented fairly. Well, I guess you know how I feel about the two-party system. Sometimes it just doesn't speak for so many Americans. And really, I feel like a big money special interests just have way too much say in the whole
Oh
thing.
yeah.
And I
Well, and
think that's kind of the pushback that we're getting. And it's not good.
it seems like this is another situation too, where if you maybe had a third party candidate, they probably could have made some noise in that election because I'm
Yeah,
guessing that district is typically Republican, right? So the
probably. Yeah.
alternate option is not going to be a Democrat.
Right.
You can only hope you have an independent or somebody in that race where you might go that route, but nah, elections. What are you going to do?
Yeah, it hasn't. Well, we keep hoping for change and
I
we'll
yeah,
see.
yeah, exactly. We'll see. Meanwhile, Attorney General Merrick Garland said Jack Smith, a longtime prosecutor and current war crimes investigator, will take the helm of two investigations into former President Donald Trump, one into the mishandling of sensitive government records at Mar-a-Lago, as well as aspects of its investigation into the January 6, 2021 incident, covering whether any person or entity unlawfully interfered with a transfer of power. Garland directly pointed to Trump's announcement in a potential a rematch election with President Biden as among the extraordinary circumstances to justify the appointment of a special prosecutor. The move is sure to surprise legal observers, many of whom have been vocal in suggesting that it would be of little benefit to the Justice Department. Amy, it's like this guy won't go away, and
No.
they don't seem to have enough on him to make him go away, which
Right.
makes me think more and more he's done some controversial things. If he broke the law, I assume that they would have already charged him with something,
Yeah, of course they would have.
right?
Yeah, I mean, politics is politics, right? It's the problem that I see is, how many people are excited about a Trump Biden rematch? I mean,
Yeah.
how happy even if you are Republican or Democrat, how happy are you about 2020 all over again?
Yeah, I can't imagine. And again, just in sort of some of the polls that I've seen, there's very low enthusiasm for Joe Biden running again.
Mhm.
Some of the polling that we've seen out of Florida specifically is they're looking for DeSantis over Trump now. There's been about a 20-point swing in how the people in Florida felt from January to last month on who they would support for president, where it had been Trump by 10 points. It's DeSantis by 12 now.
Mm,
So
yeah.
why do we want to do a redo of an election that nobody was happy with?
Right. It was
Nobody.
so destructive to the unity in our country. It produced so much animosity. And frankly, the two contenders in such a race they were too old in 2020. Now they're, you know, time to retire respectfully.
It's been interesting to hear Democrats when they're asked specifically about Joe Biden and whether they want to see Joe Biden run again. They, rather than answer that question directly, they say it's time for generational leadership change.
Well, that's just such a delicate way of putting it.
Isn't it though?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's
Um
like when these people are they're extreme elderly. I mean, their cognitive function, isn't at peak performance. That's all I have
I'm
to say.
I am glad Donald Trump has decided to announce he was running for president and that the Justice Department announced a special prosecutor right in time for Thanksgiving dinner.
Oh, that's gonna be so much fun for so many people. It's like
As if having a divisive election wasn't enough. Let's stuff two huge announcements in there back to back just before we all get together.
yeah. Oh
Yeah.
my gosh, yeah. Your favorite uncle can not only get drunk, but then he can start talking about the election, and we're all gonna be like, where's where's the
Yeah.
door?
Right. So that should be interesting. Meanwhile, record travel is expected along with record high prices at the pumps this Thanksgiving. I was reading that a little bit earlier today. I
Yeah.
mean, not only is your food all going to be more expensive, but even if you're not buying the food and you're going off to visit someone somewhere, you'll be paying more that way as well.
Yeah, over the river and through the woods. We're we're not gonna be able to afford Thanksgiving dinner. What are we gonna do?
It's getting tight. It's getting tight out there.
We're gonna
Again,
make our turkey out of Spam.
yeah. All right. We are expecting Republican Joe Hoxa. He is a member elect to the Connecticut House of Representatives, representing the 78th district. He did run unopposed, and to his credit, he did get all 100% of the vote, which is, I think, pretty impressive. If you're gonna,
Yeah.
you're a one-man show, you better do. You
If
better
you
do
didn't get
100%.
100%, I think that would be a problem.
Yeah, a lot of explaining to do.
Yes.
All right, we'll take a quick break, and hopefully Joe will be joining us next here on Connecticut Politics Live.
Want to have your show on CT Politics? If you produce a show on CT political issues or commentary and want to play it to the world, contact us now at ctpolitics.tv. We'd love to have you part of the team.
Well, we are back here on Connecticut Politics Live. I'm Joe McGuire along with Dr. Amy Chai. And still waiting for Joe Hoxa to be joining us. We were hoping he would be here right at the bottom of the hour, but no such luck so far. And then just like that, here he is, ladies and gentlemen, Joe Hoxa. Joe, congratulations on
Hi,
the
Joe.
election. And
Thank
you
you.
for joining us.
Wow, that was impeccable timing, huh?
Yes, sir, it was. Very well done. Now, Joe, you ran unopposed, right, in your race? And I know you crushed it in the primary. You won about 80% of the vote in the primary. So
Yes.
Nicely done.
Thank you. Yes, correct. I ran unopposed in November in the general election. The primary, regardless of the ultimate, breakdown of the votes, was still pretty challenging. It was a process that began in January, really, when I first announced. And then, obviously the primary itself was in August, but I got to tell you, this summer was pretty hot and it was, and pretty humid. And there was a lot of doors that were knocked. A lot of my district is pretty hilly. So a lot of hills. Probably lost about 15 pounds, so it did me some good.
Oh, wow. It's the door knocking diet plan. I bet you could probably sell that and make a buck or two.
Yeah. That's my secret sauce right there, revealed on your show for the first time. Just do a whole lot of doors, and that'll increase your chances of winning, and maybe lose a few pounds.
Sounds great to me. So, is this the season that you decided to come and run in the primaries? I know there's been a lot of, conflict even within the Republican Party. And what would you say if there was one thing that really prompted you to kind of jump feet first into this whole process? What would you say that it was?
Yeah, so there are a few things. Cost of living in Connecticut is just ridiculous. We're anybody that agrees with that statement can make it, with a lot of facts to support it. There's the gas tax is really high in Connecticut. Real estate prices are really high. Mill rates are really high compared to other states. We have hundreds and hundreds of different types of taxes on small businesses. Mm-hmm. And what do we really get for it? As I like to say, it's really cold in the winters and it's really hot in the summers. It's not like we even have temperature like California or Arizona, which look, don't get me wrong. I continue to live here for a reason. I love Connecticut. I love my hometown, my home district. There's a lot of good things about Connecticut, but unfortunately, this one party rule over the years has made it difficult for a lot of people to live here. Back in 2000, we used to have 6 congressional districts. We've since lost one, which you only lose a congressional district when you don't have the population to justify having that extra congressional district. And where have all these people gone? They've gone to South Carolina, North Carolina, Texas, Arizona, Florida, Georgia, and what do all those states have in common? Republican administrations. And look, yeah. I'm not saying that we're perfect. I'm not saying the Republican Party is perfect, but look, the people of Connecticut, it's like you got to give us a shot, and for us to show you what we can do, we have to be in charge, and we need to start winning these elections. And and I'm sure you're probably going to ask a question about that, so I'll just leave it.
Yes, I am. As a matter of fact, Joe. Listen, you guys had these guys right where you wanted them. Record high inflation within the state itself. You're talking about, right? And I agree. Very unaffordable. Too many taxes, high gas prices, high grocery taxes. I know a lot of people have obviously left this state, but is it? I mean, it must just be all Republicans because you guys just generally did worse this election cycle. And, the idea of like, hey, give us a chance. There's a lot of really good Republicans in this state. And it seems like the Democratic scare tactics either worked or there really just aren't a lot of Republicans left in Connecticut. I was kind of shocked at the results on election night.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, there are a few silver linings for sure, particularly the 5th Congressional District with George Logan. We've gotten closer to we've never gotten closer than we did this November to capturing that seat. And that kind of speaks to your point that, we need to start recruiting really good candidates if we, are to expect really good results. And, he's a good example of that. And, I hope he doesn't, go away. I hope he makes, he comes back. But yeah, I mean, we got within like 1,000 votes or something, it's insane. We've never really gotten that close for a congressional race before. And that's really, in my opinion, good enough for this cycle, because what that's going to do, Joe, is that we're going to start seeing a lot of attention being paid to Connecticut from the National Party, I believe, because of us getting that close in that race. And, because Connecticut was kind of, maybe a little bit overlooked in previous election cycles because of the fact that we have a deep blue recent history. But I think George, against all odds, really, showed that, we're worth investing in. I mean, I think Johanna Hayes outspent him 3-1, 4-1 or something like that. And plus she's an incumbent.
Yeah.
So for him to get that close, shows that we do have pockets of support. It's just a matter of, really getting the organization under these candidates to, bring him over the finish line. And George was so close. I mean, it's heartbreaking.
Yeah.
I mean, I know the guy personally. He's a terrific individual. He did a terrific job when he was up at the Capitol in Hartford as a state senator. And I wish him the best. And hopefully he'll come back in the near future. But I think we as a party, there's brighter days ahead of us for sure. I firmly believe that.
So when you get to Hartford, what is going to be your first priority? What's job one for you when you get there?
Yeah, so I think there's a lot of waste, fraud, and abuse in the system. Particularly with some of these social welfare programs. Now, I'm not an advocate for across the board cuts. To everything. Obviously, that's what the people of the 78th hired me to do, which is to use my best discretion and make the best decisions I can with the information that I have. But I just think that Connecticut has become kind of a welfare beacon over the years, and we are kicking out the makers and bringing in the takers, and I think we just need to change that culture in Hartford, and kind of see where we can save some money, and really if nothing else, it shows a good faith effort to putting in the due diligence that's required to getting the finances of the state back on track. My area, my district, oftentimes, gets looked over for the needs of the bigger cities. And, we got to question how is that money being spent in those big cities, because by the looks of it, it doesn't seem like Bridgeport, Hartford, New Haven and Waterbury, it doesn't really seem like those places are getting any better, so we really need to see how that money is being spent in the big cities. And, maybe, save a bone or two for, some of the smaller communities like mine.
It's interesting because Dr. Amy Chai ran in the 3rd Congressional District in Rose's district. We spent a lot of time talking about the horrible test scores for the kids in the 3rd grade. They're atrocious. And the scores in Hartford and the scores in Bridgeport, I didn't even look up Waterbury, but I'm sure they're not great there either. And you're talking about, about half of all of the students in this state are sporting failing grades. And as Dr. Amy Chai had pointed out, if you're not reading at the 3rd grade level, you have a 60% chance of ending up dead or in prison. So we know that $42 million got sent into the New Haven school systems for these atrocious grades. What can we do in Hartford to make sure that we're not leaving half of our student pupils behind here going forward?
Yeah, I mean that's tragic, absolutely. And unfortunately, just throwing more money at the problem is not the solution because, like I just said, these cities, these communities get virtually whatever they ask for, right, in terms of funding. So we really need to take a hard look at some of the structural problems in these school districts, attendance and how to bring attendance up, what's actually being taught in schools. Are we, kind of running social experiments in these schools, or are we teaching STEM, right? I think the United States as a whole dropped like 10 or 15, ranks, or, down
Yeah,
the ranking
we did.
chart, in science, technology, and math. And, we're not focusing on these subjects that, I feel I have the ability to say what I'm about to say, but these are subjects that actually matter. Like, I majored in political science and sociology, and I'm not saying that those subjects don't matter, but it's more challenging to find a job and a career when you major in political science and sociology and anthropology. I love them. I mean, if I could go back to college, I would major in the exact same things because I had a passion for those subjects. But we really need to focus on, kind of creating an agenda for what we want. How we want to educate the younger generations moving forward. Is it going to be a focus on the needs of on economic needs, or is it going to be just kind of this, free for all? Hey, whatever, school district, whatever any particular school district wants funding for, that we just hand out, indiscriminately. We need to take a closer look at, how we're spending the money, and and on what, it's really, it really is, in my opinion, the solution really does look something like that. It's not something where there's no particular philosophy or ideology that will, kind of be the silver bullet to solving, the education crisis. I think it's just case by case analysis of each failing school district and seeing where,
Mhm.
the systemic problems are.
Yeah, the truth is that actually dollar amounts have never correlated well with outcomes as far as in the public schools. We know that. But there's really systemic problems that need to be addressed um, before kids can even hope to learn. I mean, in New Haven, some of the kids, they don't even have to change school districts because a lot of the housing instability is so great that the kids are like moving 2 or 3 times in a school year. Um, the problems are pretty difficult. They're pretty intense, and investing early, I think, can actually save money. And hopefully, you all can figure that out, like where the efficient money is being spent and where the money is being wasted, because clearly money is being wasted somewhere.
Yeah, and well, yeah, absolutely. We definitely agree on that. I attended this graduation program today for um, a program that I was doing through the Chamber of Commerce, the Central Connecticut
Mhm.
Chamber of Commerce, and it was held at a local community college. And one of the guest speakers was a professor there. He was a government professor, political science, government, and he was talking a lot about how, like, civics isn't really like even taught properly in schools anymore, or it's taught so late in the game that, like, it doesn't really the subject matter isn't really able to penetrate into the minds of students as like a valuable and important thing to learn and know. And that's one example that I think we should have civics should be like, social studies was back in the day. It starts at like first or second grade, and it doesn't end until you graduate high school. It should be like a standing subject in every single grade. And that's part of the problem is that, the education system isn't really based on like goals anymore. It's just based on, like, kind of like this ad hoc approach of like, what's the new current, trending thing, and let's just throw money at it. We need to set goals. I mean, if that goal is to get up in those rankings from number 50 to number one or number two in the world in math, technology, and science, then we need to start investing money in those subjects. And right now it just doesn't seem like we have a clear agenda or a clear objective here.
We're talking to Joe Hoxa. We're going to take a quick break here on CT Politics Live. I want to ask you about early voting, the amendment that passed. It's already being challenged in court, Joe. We'll get your thoughts on it next.
CT Politics TV and the Connecticut Taxpayers Union present Unaffordable America with Daniel Kent Newmeyer, Joe Petrina's band Little House, focusing on Connecticut.
Now get yourself ready, go cat, go. Ooh, yeah.
Entertaining and taking an educational look at nonpartisan issues of affordable living in America.
Born in a land where we wave 'em high.
All points of view are welcome.
And we got blue angels climbing in the sky. I'm the luckiest guy in America. I'm the luckiest man born in America.
Join the Connecticut Taxpayers Union right now at ctpolitics.tv.
Born in America.
We are back on Connecticut Politics Live. I'm Joe McGuire, of course, with Dr. Amy Chai. Joe Hoxa is our guest. Joe, on November 8th, early voting, we've given permission now to the legislature to go ahead and take a look at early voting. I'm curious what your thoughts are on early voting. I'm okay with it. I think Thursday to Tuesday is about as far as I want to go with this. I don't think you need to do much more in a state the size of Connecticut.
Yeah. I mean, look, the wording on the ballot basically gives, throws the ball back into the court of the legislature, and which is, majority Democrats. So they're really going to be the ones deciding on, what that legislation looks like. And, that's just it. It is what it is. Elections have consequences. They won. They kept their majority. The thing is, I don't really know exactly how I feel about it. I mean, my first gut reaction was that I don't really support it because, it's the stats have shown that early voting in red states favors the red party, early voting in blue states favors the blue party. I don't necessarily think that it's, like a handicap or anything to us. I just think it's like an added dimension that both parties are going to have to try to figure out ways to deal with. Your suggestion is, one of the sort of styles that, are one of the types of early voting in terms of implementation, that are being discussed out there. And it's not, like I said, it's an added dimension. We're gonna adapt. We're gonna figure out how to target people in that window, or however it ends up looking like, whether it's a month, a week, or whatever. It may not necessarily be the worst thing, may not necessarily be the best thing. It's kind of an added dimension that we're gonna have to figure out.
So I wanted to ask you, talking about voting again, this election season has been so contentious. And I feel like hyper-partisanship is really an issue that's on a lot of people's minds. A lot of voters are concerned about it. And I'm wondering if you have any special sauce, any brilliant ideas. How are you going to be thinking about bridging those gaps with your colleagues who maybe don't think the same way as you do, so that you can really work with people that you might not agree with?
Yeah, well, that's the $1 million question, honestly. I mean, we're going to try our best as a caucus. I'm incredibly proud of the Republican caucus in the House. They've done a great job doing what they can do with the numbers that they have. I had the chance to meet a lot of them last week when we, had our caucus vote to elect a minority leader. Look, there's going to be things that I'm sure of it. There's going to be issues that we all agree on, or at least the majority of us, or enough of us agree on. Democrat and Republican. And, the only thing that I can promise to you right now is that I will never allow for, party politics to stand in the way of actually achieving something for the people of my district and for the people of Connecticut. We see that on both sides sometimes. I would argue
Yeah.
that we see it a little bit more on the left, but that's subjective, I guess. Maybe you could have a Democrat state rep on your show, and to make the opposite point. But no, I mean, we're elected, we're entrusted by the people of our respective districts to perform a function, to get things done, and we ran on a particular agenda. Now, are we going to be able to get that entire agenda through? Who knows? Maybe. But the point is that we accomplish that, we come out of session, and that we can say that we've accomplished something for the people of Connecticut. I'm a freshman. I mean, I don't know how tough that's going to be. I mean, I would assume that it's pretty tough being in the minority. But I'm game, and I'm willing to work with anyone if it's going to be something that's truly going to benefit the people of my district.
Joe, while you were out on the campaign trail, and again, I understand you're obviously in the minority here as far as when you get into office in January. What's the number one thing that you heard from your constituents during the campaign that you think you could work with Democrats on to make happen for your district?
Yeah, affordability issues, right? So, inflation, and like I said at the beginning of the show, general cost of living, which even before this rise in inflation that we've had this last year and a half, it was still really high in Connecticut. It's like the third or fourth most expensive state to live in by some measures, and by others maybe the most expensive state to live in. Maybe California, New York, out competes Connecticut in that category. But still, I mean, we shouldn't really, we shouldn't be there. I mean, we have, we're a small state. Yes, we provide a lot of services to people, but I think there's just better ways to manage, those, the way that money flows into said services. And really, that was like the number one issue that people were talking about. They were bringing things up like, it's really expensive to live here, and I'm not sure if I can make it another year. I'm getting close to retirement. Why should I pay taxes on my Social Security when I can just go to Florida and not pay any state tax on Social Security there? And look, I mean, I work in the banking field, and I communicate with a lot of my constituents at work, and a lot of them are, all they have is maybe a little bit of savings and their Social Security check. Like, that's just, I can't even imagine how they do it. It's tough to live off of like less than $2,000 a month. I mean, I don't know if I'd be able to do it. And some of these people are elderly, and so I'm sure they're on like some sort of like federal or state assistance. And it's like, well, if we're going to tax people to that point, and if we're going to make it that unlivable, that they need to go back, that they need to go on the system, and have to get welfare, and you have to get food stamps and other forms of welfare like that. Then it's like, what's the point? You know what I mean? It's kind of a wash. So jobs are leaving. Big businesses have left. Moved to Massachusetts, GE, et cetera, et cetera. So it's just even a nonpartisan observer would look at the trends in Connecticut and say, hey, look, they're not going in the right direction. So I think Republicans know that, Democrats know that, the people of my district know that, the people of all districts in Connecticut know that. We really need to get to work.
Yeah, it sounds like a monumental task, even if everyone did agree on how to accomplish that goal.
Yeah.
I know that everybody wants more affordable Connecticut, but I'm sure that there's very, very different ideas on how they are going to get there. We did have a story though today that we were creating some jobs in Connecticut, and it's good to see that we're getting some jobs back, and they were in the private sector, with a little bit of a decrease in jobs in the government sector. And what would you do to improve life for people who own small businesses so that the economy can grow?
Yeah, it would be some combination of cutting regulation and cutting taxes, and also advertising. Like, I don't think that Connecticut really does a lot of advertising outside of Connecticut. Like New Hampshire, Maine, Florida, like I've seen billboards from like other states, like on 84 and 91, advertising themselves to the residents of Connecticut because they know we're vulnerable. They know that our people are looking for a place to go to. We don't advertise
What
because we have
are
nothing to advertise, and
that's so
look,
cruel.
well, it's true. I mean, I think it's true. I don't know, but
Yeah.
it's tough. It needs to be a combination of cutting regulations so that buyers and sellers can access the market a lot quicker, a lot easier. Goods and services can be brought to the market a lot quicker and a lot easier. Capitalism was what this country was founded on, and all these, socialist or quasi-socialist movements in the country are just, I think they're just misguided. These people are misguided, and but getting back to your original question, when you look at, like, for example, like I think Rick Perry did this in Texas where he brought over like a massive like Toyota plant, right? He like literally sat with the CEO of Toyota and said, all right, let's negotiate. I mean, what do you want? What will it take for you to move from wherever they were? I think California, maybe to Texas. You want tax, you want to like not pay any taxes on your property, or he found a way to make the deal work. Now that's a very anecdotal one-off example, but being a proactive governor and being a proactive legislature, and having proactive agencies is really the key here to growing the tax base in the state, to growing the amounts of businesses in the state. That will ultimately lessen the burden on everybody else. I mean, it just has to, unless we find new ways of spending the additional revenue, which I'm sure politicians have done in the past, right? But really, we need growth. We need growth. Like, I used to work on political campaigns for a living, and I've traveled the whole country by car because I don't like flying. And I've been to a lot of these Midwestern states, and I'm telling you, Connecticut isn't too far away from looking like a Metro Detroit or a Metro Cleveland or a Metro Indianapolis. And we're actually there. I mean, name me,
Yeah.
there aren't too many good cities in Connecticut, where you would feel comfortable, walking down the city streets, hand in hand with your wife and kids. Hartford's certainly not one of them. New Haven's not one of them. Waterbury's not one of them. Bridgeport's not one of them. So there's just not much drawing businesses into Connecticut. So we really need to take this, one step at a time and be honest with ourselves and tackle the problems that are really facing the state if we want to increase that tax base. Combine that with less regulation, and you allow businesses to breathe and thrive and then flourish, then there you go. We're starting to look a little bit more like Florida.
Joe Hoxa takes office on January 4th, 2023, representing the 78th District. Again, congratulations. Good luck with the freshman session. We'll check in with you throughout that session. Dr. Amy Chai, a fantastic show. Thank you again for sitting in for Michelle Botello.
My pleasure.
Always a pleasure to hang out with you. And we didn't get a chance. We do have to wish Dan Newmeyer a very happy 58th birthday.
We do. Happy birthday. Applause, applause.
Yes, we love Dan. We appreciate all that Dan does. And a big thank you to Joe Hoxa. That was fun. That was a fun interview. Interesting perspective for somebody going into the House and knowing that they're so far in the majority, right? I mean, how much of an impact can you make? That's why I kind of was wondering, like, what do you think is something your district wants you to do that you might be able to accomplish, in a bipartisan fashion?
Yeah, it's tough. It's going to be an uphill climb. It's not going to be easy. So I know. Wishing Joe good luck and congratulations, and hopefully he can make Connecticut a little bit more affordable for us. I'd be grateful.
Good. That was fun to hear for sure. Thank you so much for watching Connecticut Politics Live with Joe and Michelle. I'm Joe Aguirre for Dr. Amy Chai. Make sure you get all the latest news and politics at ctpolitics.tv. We will see you next Monday night at 5 o'clock right here on CT Politics Live.